Welcome fellow explorers to Project Makirraji. In the last episode, we saw how the creatures of Makirraji adapted to the harshest environments the planet has to offer. In this episode, we'll see how the abundance of Makirraji's rainforests create some of the most exotic and remarkable creatures this planet has yet seen. As the continents slowly drift across the planet, mountain ranges are pushed up. As explained in the last episode, these mountain ranges can create areas of drought on their continental side. However, on their oceanic side, they actually cause a buildup of moisture carried on warm winds. This creates some of the wettest areas on the planet, and they don't call them rainforests for nothing. A basic overview of Makirraji's continents and climate tells us that there would most likely be warm ocean currents here, and here. These are the only currents we will worry about today. These currents carry warm water from the equator, which influences the climate of the nearby land, creating warm, wet areas near the coast. These areas are where rainforests would be most likely to form. On the splitting supercontinent of Kyphora, it may be too cold for tropical rainforests to form. Instead, something called a temperate rainforest could take hold. Temperate rainforests are characterized by an abundance of moisture, however they lack the tropical climate of their equatorial counterparts. This is because temperate rainforests tend to form at higher latitudes, which experience less direct solar radiation due to the planet's tilt. In the rainforests of Kyphora, the abundant moisture will allow trees to achieve massive sizes. However, due to the lack of solar radiation, plants here may not grow to the extent seen in tropical rainforests. Instead, these trees may grow outward, their long branches and tangling roots intertwining with one another. These interconnected structures would block nearly all light from reaching the forest floor, with only small beams of light being visible. Dense fog may be common in these regions, giving the forests an almost mystic property. The trees' root systems would be massive. This is because the abundant rain quickly washes away the nutrients from the soil. These massive root systems help the plant extract as much nutrients as possible. Their leaves may have drip tips that keep excess water from pooling on the leaf. We'll call these strange trees the Speculative. If any other plants want a chance at growing here, they'll need to get creative. Epiphytes are plants that grow on other plants, but don't display any parasitic behavior. Perhaps an extremely derived relative of the Pterotegro could adapt to this lifestyle. Their size may diminish and their tough outer covering may not be present. Their roots may burrow into their host plant to anchor them in place. These epiphytes may reproduce asexually, allowing them to form vast, interconnected colonies. These colonies would envelop the Speculative in a thick yellow fuzz. However, the relationship between guest and host may not be as one-sided as it first appears. Perhaps, the epiphyte may donate some of its sugars to the plant, and in exchange the host plant's immune system will not attack. These plants will thrive in the temperate rainforest thanks to this symbiotic relationship, each garnering some advantage from the other. We'll call these epiphytic plants the Dudamaphyta. The mulariforms will be among the most numerous clades in the temperate rainforests of Kyphora, comprising tens of thousands of species. The innumerable niches found in the rainforest may heighten their diversity to a new extreme. As these creatures diversify, many new ways of defending themselves may also emerge. Perhaps one of the most formidable forms of defense is biological toxins. Toxins are of most use to smaller animals that can't rely on other forms of defense. Perhaps a clade of Mullariform may evolve a potent toxin that inflicts severe nausea and burning to any creature that tries to eat it. However, this poison is of no use if the creature dies before the toxin can take effect. Therefore, it is in these creatures' best interest to be as noticeable to predators as possible. This may come in the form of bright, striking colors that stand out against the yellow backdrop of the forest, such as purples, blues, and greens. We will call these creatures the apiforms. The odentidans, with their adaptive nature, would thrive in the many niches found in the rainforest. As the odentidans begin to colonize the rainforest, they may take up a life in the trees. Living on the forest floor offers less food and increased risk of attack from ground-dwelling predators. However, the understory and canopy would provide ample food, and the dynamic structure of the treetops would give them a multitude of places to run and hide. Over time, these odentidans may become so specialized for a climbing lifestyle that most species may spend the entirety of their life in the trees, not once coming down to the forest floor. This extreme lifestyle would inevitably come with some physiological adaptations. These creatures may evolve longer legs to grab branches over long distances, which would greatly increase their climbing speed. Their 3 smaller pairs of legs would be used to grip the branch when resting, even being used while they sleep. Additionally, these creatures may reduce in size. This is because smaller creatures aren't as affected by fall damage. Think of it like this. If you were to drop an elephant and a beetle off of a 3-story building, the elephant would probably die, and if not, it would face serious injuries. However, the bug would land safely on the ground, hardly affected at all. We'll call these creatures the Solarae, and they will be among the most abundant clades in these temperate rainforests. Yet, there isn't only one method of moving in the trees. Suspensoriality is a behavior in which the animal hangs below the branch instead of climbing atop it. The main benefit of suspensoriality is that the creature's weight is already suspended, so it won't need to worry about balance, which reduces the risk of falling. This allows suspensorial animals to grow much larger than other tree dwellers. The most basic requirement for this lifestyle is to have large, powerful digits to grasp the branch indefinitely. Perhaps a clade of Solarae may evolve a claw on the base of their legs that would allow them to suspend themselves below the branches. Their ankle joints may become increasingly flexible, allowing them to wrap around tree branches. And their legs may become longer, as to reach from tree to tree. We'll call these creatures the Spendorodonts. Some odentidans may stay on the forest floor, becoming smaller and adapting for a lifestyle of rooting through the leaf litter for anything edible. Their small flat bodies could mimic the shape and color of a dead leaf, concealing them from predators. Even still, they would be at risk of attack from any number of ground-dwelling predators. Therefore, these creatures may need to evolve another form of defense. Venom is a type of toxin that needs to be directly injected into other organisms' bloodstreams. Venom glands have historically evolved from other chemical-producing glands. However, there is no reason venom can't evolve on its own. Perhaps these odentidans' 3 smaller pairs of legs could evolve venom glands at the base of large spikes. These glands would be relatively simple but effective. Their spikes would be fitted with grooves that the venom could run down. When a predator approaches, they may excrete their venom and raise their legs in the air. However, much like the apiforms, These creatures' defense wouldn't be of much use if predators can't recognize the danger. Therefore, these creatures' legs may become a bright purple to ward off predators. We'll call these creatures the detronadants. Once predators have evolved to recognize and avoid these signals, the system is open to exploitation. Perhaps another clade of odontodontans may evolve to mimic the detronadants' danger signals. However, it is extremely unlikely that these creatures would evolve the detronadants' venomous spines in the same way. So perhaps these mimics would rely more so on the aposematic coloration of the detronadants. This is called Batesian mimicry, and it occurs when a dangerous species is mimicked by a relatively harmless one. These mimics would evolve the same aposematic colors as the model and even raise their legs when threatened. However, they don't produce any real toxins, and their legs don't even have any spines. We'll call these creatures the batonadants. Both the batonadants and the detronadants will be free to forage among the leaf litter. On the forest floor, there is no shortage of predators. As we move up into the understory and canopy, we find a distinct lack of predators. This may not be for long, however, as more and more prey appear in the higher levels of the rainforest. A clade of cicadont may evolve to hunt them. As they adapt for a life in the trees, they would get smaller and have a long, slender body to crawl through the intertwined branches. These creatures' long, slender bodies may become extremely flexible, allowing them to wrap themselves along branches. Their feet may evolve 2 toes that can grip onto bark using their claws. Perhaps these predators may evolve a form of camouflage to more easily sneak up on prey. Some predators on Earth have evolved striking patterns to conceal themselves. These patterns break up the creature's outline against the dense foliage, making them harder to spot and thus more effective hunters. These creatures' beautiful patterns will serve a deadly purpose. Their mandibles may be held flat against the face until the last possible moment as to further conceal the predator. The cover of night affects life in many ways. Perhaps, in these creatures, it can serve as concealment, further improving their hunting. Perhaps these predators' eyes may specialize for seeing in the dark, developing a tapetum lucidum, which is a reflective layer of an animal's eye that allows creatures to extract more incoming light. It's what makes many earth animals' eyes seemingly glow in the dark. These creatures' tapetum lucidum will allow them to hunt in the darkest corners of the rainforest, day or night. It is for this reason that these predators could be considered primarily nocturnal, not completely, as they can also be active during daylight hours. These rainforest predators will be amongst the most secretive of creatures. We will call them the Yagafara. Their unique adaptations allow them to secure a kill without the prey even knowing they were there. Moving over to Nymphus, we find a very different type of rainforest. The tropical rainforests of Nymphus are found concentrated near the equator. The equator receives the highest amount of solar radiation on the planet, making these tropical rainforests some of the most rich and abundant habitats on the planet. This solar radiation drives photosynthesis and creates constantly high temperatures. The abundance of moisture and sunlight in Nymphus's rainforests would allow plants to grow here in abundance. The trees here will be the largest on the planet. This is not only because of the abundant resources, but also because of these plants' gas sacs. These gas sacs would allow them to grow higher than any other tree on Makirraji or Earth, with the tallest among them growing up to 150 meters. Their gas sacs reduce the need for hardened support structures like bark, therefore these trees would be much more flexible. This creates a strange phenomenon in which these trees sway dramatically in the wind. These giant plants dominate the tropical rainforest, creating an interesting and dynamic habitat for future colonists. We'll call them the Amazophyta. On the forest floor, the abundant leaf litter, made up of branches and shed gas sacs, would make an ideal habitat for a clade of heteromorph. Perhaps the dense, winding structure of the forest floor causes their bodies to elongate, allowing them to squeeze into tight spaces, both to hunt and to hide. Therefore, back pairs of legs may become practically vestigial, with only the two front pairs being used in locomotion. Even then, these creatures may not use their legs very much, preferring to slither along the ground. The Amazophyta's massive size and huge gas sacs may block nearly all sunlight from reaching the forest floor. This, combined with the poor soil conditions of rainforests, may result in the forest floor being relatively bare. However, as we move up into the understory, there may be more opportunities for plant life. The massive trunks of the Amazophyta would provide ideal dwellings for epiphytes. Perhaps a group of Artanagile could take up residence in this understory environment. These epiphytes wouldn't give or take anything from the host plant, only using them as a means of improving their access to sunlight. Their roots would hold them steady to the trunk, allowing them to grow outward. However, there is still a lack of nutrients in this environment. One way to solve this problem is to take in nutrients from animals. Carnivory among plants is a relatively unique adaptation and primarily occurs in rainforests or wetlands. Using the strictest definition of a carnivorous plant, we can conclude that what makes a plant truly carnivorous is the behavior of killing prey and utilizing their resources to sustain life. There are two different types of carnivorous plants. Those that utilize passive traps, in which the prey is captured without movement, and those that utilize active traps where the plant moves to secure its prey. Perhaps these Artanagile could develop a coating of small hairs laced with a sweet-smelling nectar. This nectar would draw prey in with the promise of a meal. However, as soon as the creature makes contact with the nectar, their fate is sealed. The nectar is sticky and swiftly coats the creature's body. The plant can sense the creature's distressed movements, and nearby tendrils coil around the insect and smother it. Once the victim is fully engulfed, the digestion process can begin with enzymes in the nectar dissolving the prey. We'll call these plants Losalophyta. Perhaps a clade of heteromorphs evolves a potent toxin, due to their small size not lending to many other forms of defense. This toxin would cause burning in the throat and mouth, violent bouts of nausea, and in high enough concentrations, death. But as previously stated, a toxin won't do any good if the prey dies before the toxin can take effect. Therefore, in convergence with the apiforms, these creatures would evolve aposematic coloration, with patterns of bright blue and purple to stand out against the forest backdrop. We'll call these creatures the Tratomorpha. As we have seen before, once this association has been established, it will become open to exploitation. Malarian mimicry is a type of defensive mimicry in which multiple poisonous species develop similar aposematic coloration. Unlike Batesian mimicry, Malarian mimicry benefits both the model and the mimic. When a species copies another's danger signals, it creates a sort of universal danger signal. The more species that adopt the same coloration, the stronger the signal will become. Perhaps another group of heteromorphs may evolve the same aposematic coloration. Not only will they evolve to look the same, they will also develop a toxin of their own. As more and more species adopt the same coloration, the stronger their danger signal will become. This is called a mimicry ring, in which multiple species evolve a shared danger signal. We'll call these helpful mimics the Gnathopomorpha. Up in the trees, the dynamic and dangerous habitat will select for some increasingly strange adaptations. The Amazophyta, being as tall as they are, would create an extremely dangerous environment. The higher up you go, the greater the chance of death if you were to fall. A few ways to remedy this are to evolve a small lightweight body, or to evolve adaptations to keep from falling in the first place. Perhaps a group of canterids may adapt in these ways. Their bodies becoming long and slender, and their legs elongating. Their lightweight build would greatly increase their speed in the trees, perhaps even bounding atop the tallest gas sacs. However, these creatures' lack of numerous legs may present a challenge. You see, the way their legs are positioned as of now lends to a life on the ground, but when climbing up a tree their legs become nearly useless. This is because the legs can't bend enough at the shoulder. Therefore, their legs may now attach to a ball socket joint that they can contract and release with precise muscle control, allowing them to both climb and run. Their feet may split, becoming quite dexterous, able to wrap around branches and secure perches using their claws, somewhat similar to the foot structure of Earth's woodpeckers. We'll call this clade the heptaterid. These creatures' ball socket joints may open up yet another way of moving through the trees. Brachiation is a form of locomotion in which the creature swings through the trees. This form of locomotion is rare on Earth, only having evolved in primates. The limbs of brachiating creatures are disproportionately long, allowing them to achieve great speeds. This helps them find food and avoid predation. Perhaps one clade of heptaterid may adopt brachiation as their primary form of movement. However, these creatures only have 2 limbs. This means that as they specialize for brachiation, they are also inadvertently restricting themselves to the tree, seeing as their arms will be so specialized for climbing that walking will be nearly impossible. Yet, the arms will still be able to handle food. The structure of these creatures' manus would allow them to grip around branches, lending to brachiation. These creatures may be among some of the fastest in the rainforest. We'll call them the balacaterids. Perhaps a clade of epiphytes may take hold in the canopy. These plants would grow on the branches of the trees, giving them better access to sunlight. However, being epiphytes, they will need a way to gather nutrients. Perhaps their roots may descend down to the forest floor, burrowing into the soil. Yet other roots may serve to hold the plant to the tree. In the denser parts of the forest, especially closer to ground level, wind may not be able to reach. Therefore, when these creatures release their gametes, they won't be able to travel very far before falling to the ground and dying. To remedy this, these plants may evolve a form of animal-assisted pollination. Although animal-assisted pollination comes in many different forms, they all rely on attracting animals. On Earth, the most common method of attracting animals is offering a reward in exchange for their services. This is usually accomplished in the form of nectar or other nourishments. This encourages the animal to actively seek out the plant and creates an incentive to feed from the plant as effectively as possible. These plants may be able to attract animals using nectar wells protruding from the plant body. These wells excrete a viscous sap high in sugar. While the animal is feeding, it rubs against the plant's gas sacs, which are covered in male gametes. When the animal leaves, it is covered in gametes, which it may then deposit in another plant's gas sac. As this new association evolves, it creates new niches for animals. Therefore, the animal and plant will be incentivized to make this system successful. These plants may want to become as easy to spot as possible. So, they may evolve bright eye-catching pinks across their body, standing out against the forest backdrop. We'll call these plants the poppy taffeto. Once a plant has been pollinated and the seeds have been produced, their seeds will either fall to the forest floor or land near the parent plant, creating unwanted competition. So, these plants may yet again call upon the assistance of animals. Therefore, these creatures may evolve a way of attracting dispersers. Once the plant has been fertilized, a thick fleshy coating will form around the seeds, stretching the gas sac into an oval-like shape. The gas sac gives these structures a waxy outer coating. These could be considered fruit. The waxy coating would protect the seeds from the animal's digestive system, eventually being passed through as fecal matter. This helps disperse the seeds, giving the young plants a greater chance of survival. As these new food sources appear, a multitude of clades will race to fill the created niches. Perhaps a group of heptaterid takes up frugivorous and nectivorous life. However, the poppy taffeto grow spaced a great distance from one another. Perhaps instead of jumping from tree to tree, these creatures may evolve a thin stretch of skin from their arms to the base of their legs. This is called a patagium, and it will allow them to glide from tree to tree in search of food, completely removing the risk of falling. As these creatures further specialize for gliding, they may become a prime candidate for one extraordinary adaptation: powered flight. Powered flight is an extremely rare adaptation that has only occurred 4 times on Earth. Flight requires massive amounts of energy and strength, but in turn the animal gets an easy escape from predators and a way to access places others can't. The limbs of these creatures would need to be heavily muscled. Their bodies may also become more streamlined to reduce drag. These creatures' tongues may evolve a special groove by which nectar can flow into the mouth. We will call these airborne creatures the flugophaterids. The flugophaterids, being the only flying animals on the planet, will become hugely successful, spreading far beyond the rainforest. We will cover these creatures' diversity in future episodes. The poppy taffeto and their animal partners may present an opportunity to a group of heptaterid. Up until now, all forms of mimicry we have discussed so far fall under defensive mimicry, where a prey species uses mimicry to deter predators in some way. However, predators can evolve aggressive mimicry, using mimicry to lure in prey. The poppy taffeto may be ideal models for aggressive mimicry, seeing as they already attract pollinators and frugivores. At first, these heptaterid may simply wait by or on the poppy taffeto for prey to arrive. Over time, they may evolve bright pink colorings to match the plant. At this point, this is only considered camouflage, as it does nothing to actively attract prey. Perhaps these heptapterids' bodies even evolved to look like the fruits of the poppy taffeta. The top and bottom halves of their bodies would be partitioned, and their heads would match the coloration of the fruit. The predator would position its body and legs in the form of a fruit stalk, waiting for prey. Once prey does arrive, it will leap up and skewer the prey with its long, sharp tongue. We will call these predators the mupuntarid. It is clear that the diversity found in both the temperate and tropical rainforests has provided a fertile foothold for many forms of life to thrive. The rainforests house an incredible diversity of plant and animal life unmatched anywhere on Makirraji. It would be near impossible to accurately catalogue the entirety of the rainforest's diversity. Hence, the clades shown here represent only a fraction of all rainforest clades. While the continents have been shifting and land animals have been evolving, the oceans have been quietly undergoing adaptation and specialization of unprecedented levels. In the next episode, we'll see how life on land returns back to the water. A huge thank you to all the artists on Discord who made fan art for this episode. Your contributions to this project are invaluable. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts on these incredible creatures. See you in the next episode.